Look, I know he's popular, but let me cook. With close to 4 dozen presidents, the United States has had its fair share of leaders who've radically transformed the country for the better. Rushmore plus the better Roosevelt is a solid collection to put on a mountain, for example. Then you have the presidents who resigned in disgrace and the presidents who got impeached twice. To hopefully make you feel more positive about the winner of the 2024 election, this video will be about a POTUS who would have been POTAS. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the slaveholding imperialist that won the 1844 election, but with the benefit of hindsight, James K. Polk was a crucial building block to the global ascension of the United States, and removing him would have had disastrous consequences. It's a well-known fact in the community that former Secretary of State Henry Clay ran as the Whig nominee in the 1844 election on a platform of not annexing Texas. This is the fact from which I will extrapolate this counterfactual. Had Clay managed to flip New York, he could have beaten Polk by 7 votes. The sitting president, John Schrader, historically made use of Polk's victory as evidence that annexing Texas had popular support to push through a resolution opening negotiations to do so. Had Clay won, Schrader wouldn't have attempted this, and Texas would have remained independent for at least another 4 years. So what, you might ask? Well, during those 4 years, the status of the Lone Star Republic would have changed drastically. First, Mexico would have recognized Texas independence. Even though Texas had been de facto independent since 1836, the Mexicans had refused to ratify the Treaty of Velasco, and historically didn't recognize the laws until the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. But in 1845, Jose Joaquin de Herrera was president. He believed it was impossible to reconquer Texas and high time to recognize its independence. After Texas was annexed, these arguments were thrown out the window and Herrera was deposed in a coup. But if Clay were president, Texas would never have joined the United States, so Herrera would have remained in power. However, this wouldn't guarantee that Texas would have remained independent forever. Despite the nation's immense territorial ambitions, their economy was in poor shape by 1845 due to a crash in cotton prices. 2 years earlier, Sam Houston was desperate enough to consider having Texas rejoin Mexico. It's entirely plausible that if Texas had not joined the United States, it would have been absorbed back into Mexico, even if the latter had recognized the former's independence. But a more plausible outcome was the one Herrera sought, a British-influenced Texas. Britain recognized Texan independence in 1842 and had mediated in affairs between Texas and Mexico. The primary aim of British Foreign Secretary Lord Aberdeen regarding Texas was to prevent further expansion of the United States and create an alternative source of cotton. As a British satellite, Texas could have served both of these roles. In 1845, Herrera, on British advice, offered to recognize Texas independence on the condition that Texas never joined the United States. Anson Jones, the final president of Texas, was open to the offer, but it was rejected by the Texan Congress in favor of being annexed into the United States. Had Clay been president, annexation would not even have been an option for Texas, leaving the Lone Star Republic by its lonesome. The annexationist faction in Texan politics would have collapsed, and Houston would have turned to promoting Texan expansionism. Clay also opposed expansion into the Oregon Country, so there would not have been an 1846 treaty extending the 49th parallel border to the Pacific. Without the annexation of Texas, which led to the war with Mexico, Upper California would not have been acquired by the United States either. This doesn't mean that Mexico would have retained control of California, as its hold over the northernmost territories was always tenuous. By the time the Mexican War broke out, numerous revolutions had already taken place, and Upper California's governor, Pío de Jesus Pico IV, wanted California to become a British protectorate. Since Mexico was still under the centralist system that provoked Texas, among other states, to secede, it isn't implausible to imagine that a California republic could have still been declared in 1846. That same year, Mexico offered to transfer Britain to California as security for a loan. Such a loan, which was essentially an indirect offer to sell the territory, could have helped Mexico with the over $50 million loan it owed to Britain. By 1848, California and Texas would have been independent republics in the pocket of the most powerful European colonial empire. Even if a Southern Democrat had won that year's presidential election, there would have been nothing that he could have done to expand the frontiers of the United States. Without the annexation of Texas or expansion into Mexico, the balance between free and slave states would have tipped earlier in favor of the free states. Suggestions that the Missouri Compromise line could have been moved north that I see in other Clay wins counterfactuals seem to forget what happened in Kansas when such a thing was attempted. This would have resulted in the South seceding earlier, perhaps in 1853. How the war would be conducted is impossible to say, since many of the Civil War's most famous generals gained invaluable combat experience in the Mexican War. This is important to determining the outcome since wars are won by human decision-making, not which side is more stuff. Otherwise, Vladimir Putin would have hosted a military parade in Kyiv by now. One wild card could be our old tea-sipping friends across the pond intervening in the conflict. Historically, Great Britain remained neutral in the Civil War, but was sympathetic to the South. British politicians such as Lord Palmerston, despite their anti-slavery positions, saw value in a division of the Union. Since the Oregon country would probably still have been under joint occupation, it's not implausible that something similar to the 1859 Pig War could have drawn America into conflict with its former colonial master. If the British had intervened in the Civil War, the Union would have been forced to fight on two fronts. And, take it from Germany, those usually don't go well. By 1860, North America could have looked something like this. The United States could have been surrounded by British vassal states, unable to become a world power even if it wanted to. Manifest destiny could have been stopped in its tracks by one Whig in the 19th century's most powerful empire. I'm the Counterfactor, and thanks for watching.
Big bang bankroll, got cheat codes. Certified in the hood, boy, they all know. Don't be asking y'all that you gotta know to know. Got a pocket full of cash, so the whole boat. See, I've been thugging since a young and I ain't got a bang. My name been ringing bells since I was like 14. Been serving stacking from all of the dope fiends. And I ain't tripping, y'all could get it, you ain't get from me.
And before I get a stupid comment about how the US would join the Central Powers in World War I and conquer North America, and how the wholesome right-wing genocidal German dictatorship would control Europe, consider that there are 70 years of butterflies saying that the war either doesn't happen, or ends up being so radically different that it'd be impossible to predict what would happen.